Hi, I'm Ng Kim, and I'm gonna talk about our paper, Deep Edgeware Interactive Colorization Against Color Bleeding Effects, which is accepted as an oral presentation. This work has been jointly done by Sang-hyun Lee, Jung-hoon Park, So-mi Choi, and Jaeger Chu at KAIST, and Chung-hyun Seo at Naver Webtoon Core. So, recent deep learning-based colorization approaches have shown a remarkable advance in colorizing a grayscale or sketch image either in a fully automatic manner or with colors conditioned by users. Let's briefly introduce how the colorization works. Imagine that we colorize the grayscale image by providing the additional conditions which indicate the colors in the desired regions upon the input image. Afterwards, the trained colorization network takes the input image as well as the given conditions and generates the realistic colorization output. However, when compared to the real image, the colorized results from the deep learning networks often reveal the imperfect results, particularly when the erroneous color spreading appears across the different object boundaries. For example, the yellow color injected inside the color pen on the top left corner spreads off the pen cap, while that of the pen cap in the real image clearly complies with the given image. Such a failure occurring along the edges, termed as the color bleeding artifacts, has long been observed in numerous existing colorization methods, including the state-of-the-art work. The problem is that these artifacts significantly make the results less realistic, limiting the potential of the deep colorization methods in practical applications, such as content creation in comics. To support this claim, we also reported the quantitative evidence showing the overall quality gap between the result along the edges versus that in the remaining regions. Across the existing approaches, the colorization results, particularly along the edges, denoted as local with blue color in the graph, have shown relatively low quality of colorization among other regions. So our main contribution can be summarized as follows. First, we propose a human-in-the-loop approach which can resolve the color bleeding artifacts via a simple add-on module which refines the edge-relevant representations of the backbone model. Second, with only a reasonable amount of user effort, our approach achieves the state-of-the-art results when applied to widely used baselines in both grayscale and sketch colorization. Lastly, to compensate for the blind spot in PSNR and LPIPS, we propose a cluster discrepancy ratio, which measures how precisely the model colorizes along the given edges. Now, please check our short video clip showing how our method works. As you can see, given the colorized result on the left side, a user draws a scribble roughly along the color bleeding edge. Then, our method improves the colorization quality by eliminating the wrong color spreading, as shown on the right side. Use our overall workflow. Let's consider the network which takes a grayscaled image as an input and generates an initial colorized output. As shown in the slide, the legs of the chair have been mistakenly colorized with the colors of the ground. To improve such failures, we propose an add-on module called Edge Enhancing Network E, which can be simply applied to the intermediate layers of the colorization network. Such a network is composed of a few convolutional layers and refines the intermediate activation maps to make them obtain the enhanced edgeware features. Note that we applied edge enhancing networks in multiple layers of colorization network for enhancing in both low and high level representations. Furthermore, to accommodate the intervention of users for correction of color bleeding artifacts, the network also takes the user-given scribble, which annotates the edges to be improved. The problem is that collection of the real-world user scribbles as the training dataset requires a significant amount of time and human resources. Instead, our work proposes a novel generation of user scribbles in the fully automatic manner, enabling them to be utilized during training. The colored image can be decomposed into three channels, L, A, and B. Among them, A and B channels represent the color space of the image, and we will utilize such color channels in our pseudo-scribble generation. First, we obtain A, B channels of our initial colorized result, as well as the ground truth image. Afterward, we leverage a widely used edge extractor called Canny Edge Extractor to obtain the edges from each color channel in both images. By comparing them, we can obtain the edges which appear in the ground truth but not in the colorized results. Therefore, such edges indicate where the colors are not distinct across the boundaries in the colorized results compared to that in the ground truth, which is color bleeding artifacts. Finally, we apply the random width transformation to thicken the scribble width in order to better approximate the real user scribbles in their annotations. Therefore, as an alternative to the real-world user scribble during training, the pseudo-scribbles generated through this process are then provided to the edge enhancing network. Now, to train our edge enhancing networks, we propose three main objective functions: edge enhancing loss, consistency loss, and feature regularization loss. The edge enhancing loss directly supervises the learning of edge enhancement via a sharp edge in the ground truth image, enforcing the edge enhancing network to find the activation maps that enhance the edges in the generated output. Firstly, we have the generated output by the edge enhancing network. And then, we extract the edges of it as well as the ground truth by applying the differentiable edge extracting filter called Sobel filter to the color channels of them. To encourage our network focus on improving the target edges annotated by the given scribbles, we leverage the pseudo-scribble as the mask. Therefore, in the selected region, we minimize the difference of edges between the two images, leading the generated image to have sharp and clear edges as much as at that of the ground truth. Such loss function is formulated as the edge enhancing loss described in the slide. The edge enhancing loss is calculated and added to the total loss to train our edge enhancing network. However, the model trained with edge enhancing loss may generate unintentional color changes outside of the annotated region, which can further degrade the quality of the colorized output. Therefore, we propose a consistency loss which helps to reduce the unintentional color distortions in the undesired regions. Before applying our edge enhancing network, we first obtain the initial output via the colorization network. Also, during training, we have the generated outputs by using the edge enhancing networks. Similar to what we have done for calculating edge enhancing loss, we leverage the Sobel filter to extract the edges from these two images. This time, however, we invert a pseudo-scribble to mask out the annotated regions. Then, we obtain the edges of the regions far from the color bleeding regions, where in particular, we hope their colors to be unaffected by our edge enhancement. This can be done by enforcing the edges of such areas to remain as much as those of the initial colorized output. Therefore, we formulate this by minimizing the difference between the edges of these images in such an outside area. By adding consistency loss to the previous edge enhancing loss, we obtain more realistic enhanced output without artifacts in the unintended areas. Lastly, we use the feature regularization loss to minimize the output of each edge enhancing network. This helps to avoid the excessive perturbations in the network activation maps, which thus prevents unintentional artifacts such as color saturation during the edge enhancement. As such loss can be applied in every layer where the edge enhancing networks are applied, so we add losses for every edge enhancing network. The qualitative results demonstrate that colorized images with artifacts shown in each yellow box are successfully improved by our method via user-given scribbles along the color bleeding edges. This table is a quantitative result of our method with PSNR and LPIPS. As shown in the table, our method effectively advances the colorization performance of two baselines, outperforming the existing methods. Before we move on to the cluster discrepancy ratio, we first point out the limitation of PSNR and LPIPS. Here are two colorized images, and the first one has the same color as the ground truth, but with color bleeding, while the second with different color with no such artifacts. Then, one would like to say result number 1 looks less realistic than 2 due to its color bleeding effects. However, result 1 has a better PSNR and LPIPS score than 2, as they weigh more on the color distance from the ground truth than the edge preservation. Therefore, we propose a novel metric termed cluster discrepancy ratio, or CDR. Based on the concept of superpixel, we count the number of pixels which are supposed to have different colors from the center pixel in the ground truth image, as they belong to the other objects. Also, among those pixels, we count the number of pixels which have the same color in the colorized result due to the color bleeding. Finally, we calculate the ratio of two numbers and subtract it from 1. So unlike the existing measures, our CDR assigned the higher score to the result number 2, which has less color bleeding artifacts. This table represents our method also achieves the remarkable results of the proposed CDR score against baselines. Lastly, an example utilized in a user study demonstrates that more than 3 different users have drawn scribbles for the same bleeding area. Note that our method achieves consistent improvement under such conditions. This is the end of my presentation, and thank you very much for watching this video. For more detailed information of our paper, please visit our oral presentation scheduled in session 11A and B. Also, please check our archive project page and demo video via the QR codes. Thank you.